Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Gavin and I are doing a discussion over AracKhan?
AracKhan Wars.
AracKhan, that's probably it. AracKhan Wars, which is a traditionally maybe like preliminary 1v1 tactical grid-based game, is how it's described. So, if you watch this and my Feralis discussion, I'm going to say the same thing about this one that I did about that. This showed up at my doorstep, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I had no idea. This must have been around the time where I was just backing stuff.
Just take a drink. Yeah. It's like, gifts to future me.
Just have a fucking rubber band tied around my arm.
This and that. I
have expendable income, and then bills come around, and I'm like...
just cats in like a paper bag in the corner crying. Like, why can't we have real food? You want to play your board games and like it.
If we don't like it, we'll eat the game. Anyway, so this showed up, and I was like, I don't remember anything about this. And then when I read about it, and it was like, oh, it's whoever has the most points, and that threw me for a loop, because I'm like, it's a card game, but it's based around victory points? That's going to be super weird. And I will say, I enjoy this game. I think this game is pretty good and unique. I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons to Feralis for two reasons. One, they both came out in 2023, and two, I got them at the same time. And I played them at the same time. Yeah, so it's kind of going to be a comparison, even though they are completely different games. They are 1v1 card games. Yeah, I enjoy this one way more than the other one. It is different. It reminds me a little bit of Summoner Wars, except you're not trying to defeat the other opponent, but about like the grid-based positioning. I've never played Go, but my understanding of it is it's all about, just like placement of pieces and keeping there to try and control certain areas. And that's what this game kind of is, where the placement of your units are useful for a certain amount of time, and then they're kind of just victory points on the board. And there's just a different tactile nature to that. And it's very, very pleasing. And I think there's a huge reason why I enjoy this over the other one, but I'll bring that up in a bit. What do you think of AracKhan Wars?
Well, I like the thought processes involved.
Yeah.
I think I need to understand more about the game and the deck building procedure. Mm-hmm. Are they pre-generated? So I know we were able to customize them. Is it like limited customization in the...
Nope. So,
or could I use the Blight cards with Grey Knight cards?
You cannot combine factions, to my knowledge. As far as I can tell, they have this massive story. So this is called First Edition Season 1. So they have grand aspirations that this is going to be successful to call it a Season 1. But it's called, AracKhan Wars Rise of the Grey Order. So if I can find it, in the rulebook, there's literally, at the back, a story of the Grey Order. So they seem to be very hyper-fixated on the factions and how the factions work within themselves. But I have some of the expansions. So you have the pre-con with a little bit of deck building in it. These are the extra cards, specifically for the Grey Order. So there's that, and then there are other types of other types of events. Oh no, there is terrain. And just different modes to play this game in. But when you deck build, you are deck building the Grey Order.
Gotcha.
So initially we played with the pre-cons, and it actually tells you, hey, this is the pre-con deck, just to kind of learn the game. And then, this is actually a nice segue into why I like this game a lot more, because they fucking understood the assignment of a rulebook and deck building.
That's true.
And how to teach your game. So I don't know if they hired someone, because there are people you could hire that are professional rulebook writers. In fact, one of the guys who runs another YouTube channel called Gaming Rules. He gets hired a lot. He wrote the rulebook to Frostpunk.
Okay.
So he knows structures of rule books, and he gets hired for how to plays and stuff like that. I don't think they got him to do that, but whoever they got, man, they articulated everything in just the introductory guide. Like at the very beginning, you see the playing your first game, and it tells you what to grab. Grab the pre-built deck, grab the tokens, set it up, and then here's what a round consists of. And then on the back, it tells you the faction cards. So this is kind of a player aid of all the different attributes, distance, how that works. So a lot of your initial questions are probably going to be on this first game sheet. And then if you need to know how group attack works, how some of the attributes you're not seeing, how those work, that is all in this rule book. Because every time you ask the question, I'm like, oh, let me find out. Oh, look, I found out. It told us specifically how things work. Here's how ranged attacks work. Here's what Swarm does. With pictures and examples. This is amazing. So, to go a little bit back to your question, when you go into deck building, there is a section that says Introduction to Deck Building. And it tells you your faction, and it explicitly tells you what cards to remove and what to add in, just to tell you or show you, hey, here's a little bit of how deck construction works. And that's fantastic. This is a good game, I think, to show how deck construction works to people who have never done it. Like, most people would just play precons, but then it's like, well, it's like, because it's so daunting. I have all these cards. How do I know what's going to make a good deck? Oh, well, here's, if you like the Grey Order deck, this tells you this deck will destabilize the opponent while strengthening the ranks of very powerful 6 Legion, whose backbone is made up of 3 infantrymen, 3 phalanxes, and 2 champions. With this in mind, remove these and add these, and then it even tells you what the new deck is meant to do. At the very beginning, it also tells you in the strategy guide what each faction is completely composed of in their entire ordeal. I know it's a long-winded answer to go around and tell you that it's not as free-flowing as others. You can't combine factions. But you have a stack of cards in order to mix and match. If you really like how the Grey Order works, here's cards. Here's more cards to try and build around the Grey Order.
Okay.
So yeah, with that being said, do you not like the game? Do you like the game?
Well, I like the thought processes. I like where it was making my brain go.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what is... I guess my bias right now is I felt predictable. I felt like my guys were one note.
Okay.
And I felt like you had a lot more options in your deck.
Okay.
And that was kind of okay, so I can... And that just made the momentum aspect of the game a little more apparent.
Sure.
So, like, you know, if your first play goes south and you get wiped, I felt like it was hard fought to catch up.
Yes.
I mean, the same thing with our first game. I felt like I had a little momentum at the beginning, and you came back from that. But then I really felt it in the second game, where like I couldn't bounce back, and a lot of that was based on what hand you get.
Yes.
And so felt like I was top decking.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there. That is kind of a crucial potential issue, which I guess you could do it in that if that happens, you can just start over. Be like, you know what, you got it. Just
if I play this a few more times, customize my own deck up, I'd probably change it too. Of course, losing 2 games in a row, I'm a little pissed. I'm a little miffed. I'm a little irritable.
Well, no, it's so fascinating that every time I've played this, that has happened. And I think it's just through sheer luck, like, because the way the game starts is the first player who actually has an advantage because they get to go first in the first and last round, so they actually get, because you play 9 rounds, get 1 more turn to start. And starting is huge because you have placement priority. And there were a lot of times where I'm like...
and activation.
And that's just...
But here's the thing. If it's like your fucking go, your first act, but then you get fucking, like, you get the zinger card, you lay it down, and I just lost that, and now I'm backpedaling, and now you have the advantage again, so I'm just double backpedaling.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that issue lies with how the game starts. So in the game, there's 4 green squares, and if there's no cards on the board, you have to place your cards there. And when you're placing cards, they always have to be adjacent, orthogonally. And because of that, it's very restrictive. I mean, even the placement rules doesn't, like, the middle doesn't really matter a whole lot because you still have to place them adjacent to each other. So I think with the perforation ability, both the times that it's happened, and it's like, it's not a lot that it's happened, but it's weird that it's happened twice, but the game went the exact same way with completely different factions. Funny enough, the first time I did it, it was with the Grey Order, and I used the Siege Tower. But it happened to be just the right circumstance that the perforation killed both the units, and then the player just has no units, so then it's just kind of like, well, that's a 10-point card, that's a 13-point card, I'm now going to start bolstering my defenses around that so you can't take my high-value cards. And now you have no cards on the board, and now I have 4. And in a game that's so methodical about where you're placing, not being, like, balanced on, okay, maybe you kill 1 on the opening turn. At least I still have 1, and you have 2. And then, so you're just 1 ahead of me. But being 2 is a huge deal. So I completely agree with you. You just are trying to play catch-up. And with the way the placement works, where you always have to place adjacent, yeah, it does feel kind of easy for the player who had that strong opening to just kind of continue pushing that advantage. I don't know how to fix that. I mean, other than, oh, you completely wipe me, I scoop.
I mean, I like the attempt, the prediction. I mean, you know kind of how a faction's going to operate. Sure, if we played this a little bit more, which might be one of our faults, we don't go super in depth into the 1v1s.
Right.
I customize my own. Like, I would definitely put more of those missionaries in there. I mean, they were the fucking, no spells for you, sir.
Yeah.
Just put a stop to that nonsense.
Yeah, so I was going to look it up. There it is. So, yeah, it cannot contain more than 5 cards with the initiative attribute. It cannot contain more than 6 cards with stealth. It cannot contain more than 6 copies of a card with the same name that has a value of 6 or more, because you have to build a 23-card deck. It cannot contain more than 1 legendary card with the same name. And some cards have an individual limit. The limit is displayed in Roman numerals at the top left. So
individual limit? So what, I could have had 4 Titans?
No. Some cards have an individual... Yeah, this limit is displayed in Roman numerals on the top left corner of these cards. Each of the 4 pre-built decks comes with a set of additional cards. Oh, yeah, just for deck building purposes. I guess... I don't know what that means. Unless that means the individual limit means you can only have 1 4. I think that's what it means.
Oh, gotcha.
So it goes up to, looks like 7. So, and then also it has to be composed of, the 23 cards must be 125 points or less. And it has to be 23 cards of the same faction.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, I mean, these kind of games are difficult to review 100% because it's deck customization. So you review off of, I mean, at least we were able to play pre-builts and some deck modification, which to me was enough to kind of change how the game worked.
Yeah.
It was nice to just, hey, the Blight I played, I took out 3 cards, added 3 new ones, and it's like, ooh, okay, yeah, this does a little bit more. One decision-making thing that I don't think should work is using L for both land and legendary. It's like, yeah, lands have a brown border, but at the same time, if you're just kind of quickly looking and want to look at the L's, it made it seem like that, oh, hey, you can actually take over some of these really strong creatures. And now that's my creature. Like, it almost felt like it was kind of like a sellsword kind of thing, where it's like, hey, I beat you and now you work for me.
Gotcha. Come
and get them back. But that's just something that if you're going to be teaching the game, you're just like, by the way, brown border is lands. You conquer lands.
So they both have L's.
Yep.
And the brown... So can I have multiple lands in my deck?
I don't see why not. I do. Oh, wait, no, that's yours. Sorry.
Or is it... I just get one?
It said you can't have more than 1 copy of a legendary card with the same name. So as long as you have different legendary, as long as it's...
with the same name.
You can't have, multiple...
Okay, I was hearing, 1 legendary. Okay.
No. Because, I have there's a legendary Fear, the Fear card.
Okay.
But the gameplay of this game, I think, yeah, it's because of the positioning and not everything has movement, which is kind of odd at some point. Like, certain cards have movement, certain cards have flight. Other than that, like, at the very beginning, I had this Child Eater, and he did what he was meant to do, and then he didn't do anything, which some people might be like, well, that's kind of boring. For other games, I would agree, but I think that this game is a lot more about just tactical spacing. Like, I played him in the hopes that I'd be able to kill your opening units. If I just misplayed and played on the other end, your guy would have had too much defense, and it wouldn't have worked, which would have actually killed him. So that was the risk-reward that you kind of take, and I like that in this game. And that's why I was like, I'm just going to fucking try it. If it fails, then I am losing, because that thing is dying. Yeah, no, you can keep going.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's I do like the thought process. It's very chess-like, trying to predict your opponent's moves with what knowledge you do have of the decks. Kind of placement styles, like, okay, I definitely played a spell card there.
That
he's
counter
probably
spell
going after
sucks so hard. Your Gray Missionary, like, whenever you popped him, I'm like, man, you left that wide open. Oh, man, I'm going to deactivate all those creatures. Never mind. That sucks. But it does have that kind of gameplay. Like, a lot of...
I definitely enjoyed this more than the previous. No offense to Feralis.
What was it?
It's better than Summoner Wars, which is the one
Okay.
where you move around, right? Hate that one. Let's see. Yeah.
What do you think about...
I would need to play this a little bit more to really get a firm opinion.
Sure.
On it. I so far I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's got good bones.
Yeah.
Good bones.
What do you think about the... because this is interesting. It's different than pretty much every other game. That you have to exceed the defense.
I don't like that.
You don't
I'm
like
glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. I just like that.
Yeah.
And literally every other game, it's meets it beats it.
Right.
Everything, like, that's just the core rule of
it's like
Earth.
the staple.
It's like, you meet this number,
Yeah.
you get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, just modify your numbers,
Right.
and meets it beats it.
Yeah.
So that's a small frustration. I mean, you just have to really adopt your thinking. But how many times did we have to stop and be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I didn't quite get it. Because
Right.
you're like, I made the number, it's going down.
Yeah.
No, you got to be over. And
Yeah.
that's...
Things with, like, a defense of 4 require a lot of, like, planning to take it over.
Yeah, it's like 2 is fairly sturdy.
Yeah.
1 is, paper mache.
Right.
But yeah, 2 is decent. It's like, you have to think, because you got to get up to 3 now.
Yeah.
And then 3 is like, oh shit. And then 4 is not going down without, like, a concentrated effort.
Yes. Which, to be fair, a lot of those higher defensive ones or the super high attack ones are either extremely circumstantial. Like, most lands have 4 defense, but it's like, well, if I take that from you, then now I get the benefit of it. And the ones with, like, the high attack, like my Child Eater in this case, is very squishy. So it's like, well, it's a lot of points, but it's, I mean, he's wide open to be taken over. I do think that there needs to be, and obviously I haven't looked through all the individual cards. I know the blue deck is high mobility. I actually have not played the green deck. That's the only one I haven't tried.
Gotcha.
So I've played the Great Order. They can be just as disgusting, where it's just like, okay, I thought I had enough, but then you played them next to each other, and now they all boost each other, so his defense is now 6. Okay! Oh, and their attacks are 9, because they all just play off of each other, which is thematic to, like, a unit. The blue deck has a lot of creatures with flight, a lot of creatures with movement, so just that sheer adaptability of being like, I'm going to do a group swarm and have all these birds fly in. Yeah.
So I see it also does 2 to 4?
Yes. No, there's a lot of other modes to play this game. Kind of like, I think Feralis had a couple. So you can play 3 to 4 free-for-all.
Ooh.
2v2. event mode, which event mode is there's the event mode. There's just a deck of events that you just flip, and it just has an effect, standard event deck. And then they have objective mode, which is where there are objectives that you can try and go after, which will get you points at the end of the game.
Okay.
So where does it say? The game mode adaptability. Yeah, so like certain cards. Oh, there's also strategy cards, but I don't really know what those are. So like the event cards can be used in 1v1, 3, and it tells you all the modes that things work for. So objectives can't be done in 2v2, but they can be done in 1v1 and 3 to 4 player free for all. I mean, just for the content in this box and the little expansions, God, I'm just so impressed with this introductory guide, man. Especially coming from Feralis, where it's like, so what happens if I play multiple cards? I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. So why? Yeah, I don't know. They didn't put it in the fucking. Why can't I build multiple pre-con decks? I don't know. And then in here, it's just like, okay, well, here's everything you need to know about our game in different modes. Oh, you're still having a little bit of trouble understanding your deck? Well, the strategy guide here tells you literally about everything and the theme around the Grey Order, strengths and weaknesses. It even ensure your tactical adaptability, like kind of how to build your deck. Like, hey, you probably shouldn't have 26, or like comparison of proportion of different types between the Grey Order and the Blight pre-built. So the Grey Order has 13% spells, 83% creatures.
Okay.
Then tells you, hey, protect your best assets, assess the situation. They just went above and beyond to make sure that anyone who wants to play this game has everything to their disposal to play their game and play it well. So just for this component alone, like Season 1, to me, would be off to a great start. Because you start with this, you learn the game, and then that allows them to do Season 2 and become more complex. Allow to expand upon the system. Do more creative things like the legendary card that allows you to take control of someone's faction. And learn mistakes from that. Like, I realized I should have played him when I had initial control, not because I played him when you were starting, so you got to activate him, and I was like, well, why'd I do that? But then it's like, if I play them on my turn, then I play him, and then it's like, haha, now I get to activate him and take over your guy. But I'm not as miffed on the defense of exceeding it. It is, if it was a game like Feralis, where it was like trying to, or Magic, or things where you had to exceed them to defeat the creature, and then that's how you ultimately, won the game by defeating your opponent. It would be weird, but for some reason for me it works here, because it does force you to utilize your entire deck. Otherwise, everything is just weak, and everything just dies, Mm-hmm. You'd always have to have high-value creatures to make them do anything. But in a game where you have to at least get 2 attack to defeat my Swamp Ogre, he's viable for a limited time. Negatives for me. I do agree on if you just get your entire unit killed. I mean,
it's a deck game,
it is.
So you can certainly draw poo-poo.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Like, all right, let me just... Okay, I've got a bunch of infantrymen and phalanxes. Cool, but they really need to build, and it's like, here you are sitting there with... And they're like, we're 3, so they're garbage value on the field. So it's like, well, I guess I'll just piss and pour.
Yeah. Another cool thing about this game is the deck size is weird. The fact that it has to be 23 cards.
That is weird.
But you will go through your entire deck.
Mm-hmm. I do like that. You're going to... So what's in there is gonna hit the field. That's a good point. It's not gonna be utilized.
Yeah.
Like your big contenders, they're coming.
Yeah.
So you just to the timing to strategically place them, and hopefully place them at a time to where they're not just absolutely butt-fuck countered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. Not because half the time, I mean, when you play Magic, you're like, well, I got land screws or something, and it's like, oh man, if I draw into this, I'll win, and you never draw into it. When you're playing this, you're like, oh, okay, well, I haven't drawn into my my plague collectors yet. That'd be a really good position over there. So hopefully I draw them. Oh, yes. But if you don't, it's like, well, there's 3 rounds left, 6 cards. I'm going to draw into it. Yeah. I think that's really cool. It's just clean. Mm-hmm. It's a clean game. I don't think... And maybe the game works so well because they didn't try to have you combine factions. I'll give Forellis and other games a kind of a pass when they're trying to be like, hey, here's how this one faction works, and also they have to try and make it work with everything else by keeping everything balanced. Here, they just had to be like, here's how the Blight works. Here's how the Grey Order works. Here's how the, whatever they're called, Knuckle or Nickel or Naka. Here's how all these decks work, and we can synergize with that and make expansions for that. So I would love to see more seasons. Love to see more factions. I don't know who this company is. Nothing But Games. Like, I'm almost 100% positive that they have made nothing else.
Okay. First edition, season 1.
Yeah, I know.
Season 2.
Nothing but games. This is their only game.
Nice.
The designer for
Glad to see they put the effort
AracKhan Wars is Mikhail Bauer. This is his first game.
Wow.
So, let's see. Yeah, I mean, just for season 1, you got a lot of replayability. These are all the cards for the Blight. I mean, they look more impressive because they're all sleeved. But the expansions, Singing Iron and Moving Shadow, they also just kind of talk about the Brotherhood of Destruction deck. That's the Grey Order, so those are the cards that they brought. The Blight is Sick Brutality. So that even just tells you that's a pre-con deck to build just from this expansion. Whitelands is Ice Storm deck, and the Naka is Naka Ascension. I don't know how the Naka play. But another cool thing about this game that I like is it actually... I like the way that the spells are utilized in this. Like, how some of them are kind of like off the field, but then others can be played on the field. So, like, they act as a unit. And it's like, oh, haha, that was actually, I thought about putting 2 Firestorms there, which wouldn't have mattered for him, but I was going to try and weaken that by 2, and then just have another unit come in and kill it. Ignore this guy. Fuck that guy. He's annoying.
I mean, those Firestorms are, like, juicy little counters for all the Phalanx boys. It's like, oh, I need to punch through, Firestorm.
Yeah, or the other thing is, like, it turns these guys, these Berserkers, into viable things, because then he could be... like here, and so this pops off, lowers their defense to 0, and now his initiative of 1 and Omni thing actually works.
Right.
So the decks do have depth. The spells are neat. They're positioned just like units, and sometimes they're over here, but then it's like, shit, what's that over there? That's some Omni board thing that's going to affect everything. Because in the first game that we played with the Grey Order, you had this massive defensive one where they were all... I'm like, I can't do anything. I can't do anything. That sucks. So, I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a bit, and I'm not huge on keeping deck construction games because they require time commitment. Like, that requires time to be like, oh, let's build decks and test them out. But I also really like Summoner Wars. And... that's a skirmish game, 1v1 game that gives that different itch, and this is a tactical grid-based game for a different itch. I think Summoner Wars also allows deck construction, but I don't know the rules for it. Other than that, I don't have much. I don't have much else to say. Nothing but positives for me. I also don't think the game is all that long.
No.
Unless you lose.
We got through a couple games.
Yeah, unless you lose in the first, you lose your units in the first order, and it's very short. Where you can just be like, I'll scoop, let's restart.
Yep, you win this one.
I would like to see more rules about like be more versatile with movement. Like allow that to kind of play a bigger role. Like flight can be huge, movement can be huge, but it'd be neat to kind of see maybe something. And I think maybe not more attributes, but perhaps just more unique abilities. Like just the cards that were added into the testing out deck building were it was actually like walls of text. You know, like my whatever stupid guy, Nemesio, swap the faction. Like that was actually like, oh hey, there's some text here. I actually have to take time to read and understand what it's doing. But then you just get other cool stuff like Dragon Breath. That's just a spell of perforation. I guess my only kind of negative is I wish this had Feralis art.
Yeah,
the art is
little
generic.
It works.
Yeah,
I mean we got a solid aesthetic.
Yeah, it works because of the story element that they kind of put into it. They created the world to be like, okay, here's the rise of the Grey Order. Here's a whole story thing of the Grey Order, and here's the strategy guide about the other factions. So it does work, and it's not bad art. Just some of the
I mean, at least this one has you can kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Put yourself in their place. Like, okay, Iron Order, I get them. They're knights. They work together. Your blights, your berserkers, your nonsense firestorms.
Yeah.
And then with Feralis, it's like, okay, I'm nonsense alien creature versus nonsense alien creature.
That's true. But damn, that nonsense alien creature.
They look good. They're great art, but you're nonsense alien creatures.
Yeah.
God, what was that skirmish game you were looking at that you talked to extensively? A fella, like one of the creators of it.
I know.
At Gen Con. And I was like, so you're nonsense alien creatures fighting nonsense techno alien creatures.
Yeah, it was the same company that did Deep Madness.
It's like, I can keep track of
Celestia or something like that. They went on Kickstarter and immediately canceled it because they got a lot of backlash because they haven't delivered on their Deep Madness reprint or their Dawn of Madness that's like 4 years late at this point. So they got a lot of shit from being like, you haven't even fulfilled your other stuff. How about you finish that? And they were like, you're right. And they canceled it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, like some of those worlds are really cool to get into if you take the time to get into them. Hell, I got another game called Earthborn Rangers that has a storybook that like to learn the world. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and read this. And then you start and you're like,
it's like, how many other worlds lore do I need to cram into my fucking head?
And when it's not a book, when it's not a narrative being told to you, I find lore stuff hard to read. It's not gripping, even though it should be. It's like, I really like this. It sounds interesting, but this isn't a narrative. There's no characters for me to follow or get into, so I find it really hard. Anyway, all that to say, they at least did something here.
Relate. That was the word I was looking for earlier.
Oh, yeah.
I struggle with basic words sometimes.
And it's okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think my biggest positive, honestly, is it's just how complete that introduction guide is. Especially after just playing Feralis, when the basic shit just can't... And then, hey, guess what? We know what these tokens do. They just go here to activate stuff. That's it, and we can keep track. We flip it. Yeah. We're not sitting here fiddling with stuff to try and... Anyway, whatever. This game is great. If you're looking for a different type of tactile 1v1 card game, I would highly recommend checking this one out. So, Nothing But Games, and the designer, you're not even on the box. I'm sorry. Mikhail? I think it was Mikhail.
Scratch audibly on the camera right now.
Anyway, yeah, I hope to see more. I hope they come out with season 2 and stuff. But on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you giving AracKhan Wars?
Oh, for me, I'll give it a 7.
A 7?
I'll give it a 7.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually sitting at an 8 right now. I think this could actually, and that's what I put it on Board Game Geek, I can see this going up to a 9. I think that the gameplay needs to be a little bit more dynamic. Like, I do think there is enough thought process here, but I do still think it is a little bit simple. And that could also be just because we've played with the precons that are meant to just get you into the game, and also a little bit of deck building that the extra cards, it's just like, oh, okay, here they are. But I'm going to give it an 8 right now.
8. A sexy 8.
Yep. So that's our thoughts on AracKhan Wars. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.